In lesson 312, we are going to be learning about tenths of a centimeter. So for today's math lesson, you will need your math journal, your whiteboard marker and eraser, and a ruler. And that ruler needs to have centimeters. If you do not have one in your house, you can look in your Unit 3 packet on page 138, and you can actually go ahead and cut that out from the bottom of the page. Be careful, we will be using the top part of that page. And then you'll notice in the center there is a fold line. So you will fold the millimeters underneath the centimeters so that today we'll just work with the centimeters. So let's go ahead and start with our whiteboard. At the top of your whiteboard, I would like you to write the number 680,623. Go ahead and write that. And then you will number 1 to 3 on your whiteboard. We're going to round this number to the nearest million for number 1, nearest 100,000, nearest 10,000. So go ahead and round that number 3 different times to 3 different place values. Go ahead and pause your video and complete this task. When rounding to the nearest million, this number only goes to the 100,000, so there's really nothing in the millions place. So just imagine if there's nothing there, we still look 1 to the right. If it's 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. So closest million is actually 1 million. Now let's take that same number and let's round that to the nearest 100,000. So I'm going to circle the number in the 100,000s. 1 to the right, it's 5 or more. So rounded to the nearest 100,000 would be 700,000. And lastly, if we go ahead and round to the nearest 10,000, or circle the 8, which is in the 10,000s, we look 1 to the right, it's 4 or less, so we let it rest. 680 million. Go ahead and clear off your whiteboard. And this is where we're going to use our ruler. So you can see at the bottom, I have a ruler that on one side it has inches, and on the other side it has centimeters. So we're going to be using the side that has the centimeters. Again, you can cut that out of in your Unit 3 packet on page 138. We are going to go ahead and move into our math journal. So you're going to go ahead and open to page 98 in your math journal. Page 98. Centimeters and millimeters. Cut out the ruler given to you by your teacher. Again, page 138. And you're going to use it to measure the pencils to the nearest centimeter. So make sure you're on the side that has the centimeters. Go ahead and put the 0. Now, when you are measuring, do not always use the end of the ruler. Be careful that you start and measure with 0 at the end. So what I would like for you to do is to measure pencil A and pencil B and fill in how many centimeters to the nearest centimeter. Go ahead and measure and pause your video. When I measure pencil A, I notice that it's just a little bit shy or not quite 12 centimeters, but it is closer to 12 than it is 11. When I measure pencil B, it's just over 12, a little bit more, but it's closer to 12 than it is 13. Notice they're not exactly the same length. So then, since they're not exactly the same length, question 2 says one pencil is longer than the other. Which pencil is longer? Circle your answer. So remember I said that pencil B was just a little bit more than A. A was a little less than 12 centimeters. B was a little more. How do you figure out which pencil is longer? Well, pencil A was a little shorter than 12 centimeters. And pencil B was a little more than 12 centimeters. So go ahead and fill that in next to number 3. Number 4 says, Marco wants to know the difference in length between the two pencils. Can you tell him why or why not? Well, if the ruler has a smaller measurement, I would be able to do that. If it only has the centimeters, it would have to be divided into smaller segments. So I would need to have the ruler divided into smaller segments. So as of right now, just using centimeters, no, I cannot tell him the difference in length between those two pencils. So let's go ahead and move to the bottom of this page. Question number 5. Use the centimeter and millimeter ruler to measure the pencils to the nearest tenth of a centimeter and millimeter. So now you're going to use all of these little lines between 0 and 1. So if you look at this particular ruler right here, you'll see here is 1 centimeter, and in between we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little lines. In other words, we have 10 millimeters in every centimeter. Now we have the tool to tell which pencil is longer. So pencil A, if you line it up, go ahead and line it up next to number 1. It is 11 centimeters, and then let's count the little lines from 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 11 7/10 centimeters. So on my ruler, it would have been right there. Started here. How many millimeters is that? Each one of these is 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 111, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 11 7/10 centimeters is the same thing as 117 millimeters. Let's do the same thing for B. Go ahead and put your ruler measuring from 0 on the eraser to the very tip of the pencil lead. It's 12 centimeters. And then let's count. It would go to right here. Then we count how many little lines after the 12? It's 12 2/10 centimeters. Or if I counted by tens, because there's 10 millimeters in every centimeter, I would have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 21, 22, 122 millimeters long. So pencil B, if I were to figure out the difference between those two, I would subtract. And when you're using decimal points, you just bring that decimal point straight down. And you would measure, it's 1/2 centimeter or 5/10 of a centimeter longer. In other words, it would be 5 millimeters. Now we're going to move actually into our packet for Unit 3. You'll find this in your white packet on page 137. 137. Up at the top, it says comparing millimeters and centimeters. And here is what you're seeing. It says this is a picture of a centimeter strip. It shows both centimeters. We use cm to abbreviate that, and millimeters, mm marks. The top numbers 0 through 21 are centimeters. Underneath the centimeter numbers, there are larger numbers that tell the number of millimeters. So we're going to count the intervals or the little lines between 0 and 1 to see that there are 10 millimeters for every centimeter. So if I went ahead and counted those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 millimeters for every 1 centimeter. In other words, each millimeter is worth 1/10, or we would write it as a decimal, of a centimeter. So 2 3/10 centimeters is the same thing as 23 millimeters, or 37 millimeters is the same as 3 7/10. Number 2, find each of the points below and mark them on the centimeter strip with a colored pencil. Use the millimeter marks to help you convert the centimeters to millimeters. Remember to count intervals, not marks, to find the missing number. So if we go to 2 centimeters, I'm going to go ahead and make a mark right at 2 centimeters. And then I look, what does that equal in millimeters? 20 millimeters. 10 millimeters for every centimeter. So I just really had to multiply by 10. Next, we're going to move to 11 centimeters. Go ahead and make a mark on 11 centimeters. There are 10 centimeters, so I really just have to take 11 times 10, which would be 110. Make sure you're filling this in on sheet or page 137 in your white Unit 3 math packet. The next one is 1 4/10 centimeters. So I'm going to go to the 1 and count 4 lines after that. Right there. If I count, this would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 millimeters. Next, it's saying put a mark at 80 millimeters. 80 millimeters would be right here. If I look straight up above, that would be the same thing as 8 centimeters. 65 millimeters is halfway between 60 and 70, right here. If we were to write that as a decimal, it is 6 centimeters and 5/10. 6 5/10 centimeters. And lastly, 135 is halfway between 130 and 140. And that would be 13 and, we say the word and when we place a decimal point, 13 and 5/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks between the 13 and where we put our dot. Next, we're going to go ahead and continue in our packet. You're going to find the page that says measuring in millimeters, and that would be on page 138. Page 138 in your packet, not in your math journal. You're going to measure each line segment to the nearest 1/10 of a centimeter and record the measurement in centimeters and millimeters. So here's where you're going to need the ruler at the bottom, either cutting it out or having your own ruler. Go ahead and put your ruler down on line 1. It's a little more than 5, but less than 6. So count how many line segments it goes beyond 5 centimeters. And it goes 4, so we would call this 5 4/10 centimeters. In millimeters, it would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, plus 4 more would be 54 millimeters. Line number 2. This is the last one we'll do together, and then I want you to try the others on your own. So go ahead and put the ruler right under line 2. Make sure it's starting at 0. and not the end of the ruler. So it's a little more than 8, and if you count, it goes 3 lines past 8. So we would call that 8 3/10 centimeters. We count 10 millimeters for every centimeter. So if we count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, plus 3 more would be 83 millimeters. So we've done 2 together. I want you to go ahead and do 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on your own, and then you may go ahead and check your work. So stop your video at this time, measure the last 5 lines, and check your work after you've measured. Go ahead and stop the video at this time. Now that you're done, you can go ahead and check your work. I would say if you're within 1/10, if you're just 1 away on either side, I would give that to you. So 4 7/10, which is 47 millimeters. Number 4, 3 5/10 centimeters, or 35 millimeters. Number 5, 9 6/10 centimeters, or 96 millimeters. Number 6, 14 8/10 centimeters, or 148 millimeters. And lastly, 6 6/10 centimeters, or 66 millimeters.